Hey, good morning on this Monday morning. Hey guys, I wanted to share something with you and quite interesting. And last night before I went to sleep, I just kept hearing the Lord say these words: spiritual bypassing. Didn't really think much of it until I woke up this morning. And when he spoke the word spiritual bypass, and I thought about the word bypass, my mind automatically went medical and saying to myself, a bypass is typically something is performed when a doctor discovers there's a blockage or some type of restriction that's in a pathway. And how a lot of times the goal of a bypass is to reroute the flow of something. It could be blood, it could be digestive contents. But then I began to think about a bypass and how that a bypass is not only about creating a new path, but it can also involve moving around the problem area. And when God began to speak this to me, he began to tell me again, he said, son, the danger of spiritual bypassing, when people use the church to escape their reality. And then God began to tell me, he said, son, when you see this happening, these are the people that have the tendency of using my name, or what they call church, to avoid facing their realities along with their issues, such as their painful emotions and their unhealed wounds, their unresolved traumas, and their personal accountability. I want to talk to you this morning. And as I was sitting here, God spoke to me, and God said, son, instead of them doing what they need to do to be healed, to grow, and to be transformed, he said, these are the kinds of people who have been and will continue to hide behind things that are involved when it comes to quote and unquote the church. And the Lord told me, he said, son, many are hiding behind prayer, and many are hiding behind what we call fasting, and many are hiding even behind the word, or anything that they feel they can use to avoid or escape dealing with their real issues. And when I thought about this, I thought about Adam. When Adam disobeyed God, and the Bible tells us that God began to ask Adam, where art thou? And what was really amazing is that Adam, after he discovered he was naked, the Bible said that Adam began to cover himself with fig leaves. So what are you saying, prophet? Sometimes it is no different from the church, is that we can take the very thing that God is giving us, but instead of using it accordingly, we use it and we hide behind those things before we ever come to the place of dealing with reality. Yeah, I've been there. I had some struggles when I was in church, but I was hiding behind my gift. I was hiding behind my tongues. I was hiding behind the scriptures. Can I just talk to some people this? Because Proverbs 4:23 tells us, keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it springs the issues of life. Not issue, but it's plural, issues of life. And when I looked at this verse, I begin to say to myself, this verse is saying that everything in our lives involves your thoughts, your emotions, your choices, your decisions, your actions. But all of it coming from the heart. And God began to show me, he said, son, the heart is like the control center of your life. Whatever you let in, whether it's good or bad, it will begin to eventually show up in the way you talk, the way you walk, the way you act, in the way that you treat others. That's why I want to encourage you this morning. That's why it's so important to guard what is influencing you. And I was talking to my brother Derek on last night, and I began to tell him that it's not so much of the devil that is quote and unquote killing us, y'all. It's reality. It's reality. And it's not just reality killing the people in the world, but it's killing the people in the church. Because we will listen to preachers preach about prosperity and the next level and turn around 3 times you coming out. But when it comes to reality, the people begin to turn a deaf ear. And I've learned, because you in church doesn't mean you want to deal with reality. Because you in church doesn't mean that you're willing and ready to confront your issues. And people will hear you talk about everything when it comes to the gospel. And what's really sad, y'all, that some people will accept what you have to say as long as it doesn't require them to deal with their reality or to deal with their issues. Getting ready to step out on a limb. And I remember God telling me years ago, and when I was so spiritually minded that I was no earthly good, and I was at a point, y'all, where I was learning about the gifts, I was learning scriptures, I was learning how to dissect, I was learning how to understand. But I was being taught the spiritual aspect of life, but I was dumbfounded when it came trying to live in the real world. I remember God speaking to me and saying, son, the problem you are having when it comes to trying to live and do what is required of you, you are trying to live high in the spirit when you need to drop back down low enough and deal with those things that was left undone. And that's what God is saying. What's the purpose of flying high in the spirit when there's things beneath you that need to be dealt with? And then again, God brought this thing back to me when I looked at it. I thought about the movie Lion King once again. And then I began to think about Simba And when he was trying to escape, y'all, he was trying to avoid reality and his responsibility. Because if you know anything about the Lion King, in the beginning of the movie, Simba, he was a young lion prince. But he was faced with the traumatic death of his father. And instead of Simba confronting his guilt and his grief and his responsibility, Simba began to run away from the kingdom, and he adopted, y'all, another philosophy, what they call Hakuna Matata. And when I looked up that word, it means no worries. My question is, you're running, but where are you running to? My question is, you're running, but what are you running to adopt? I mean, it so much reminds me, so how many people turn to the church? Not because they love God, not because they want to be saved, simply because they're using the church to avoid reality. They're using the church because they say, if I come to the church, I don't have to deal with the womb. I don't have to deal with the molestation. I don't have to deal with the trauma that I went through in my marriage. I don't have to deal with the trauma when my uncle took advantage of me, or when the bishop took advantage of me, or when the preacher took advantage of me. I don't have to deal with it. Ha shandio sheketabatsi. We come into the church and we learn church, and we learn how to dance, and we learn how to preach, and we learn how to prophesy. But the question is it for the glory of God that you're doing these things? Or are you doing it so that you can hide behind these things because you're not willing to deal with your issues? And one thing that I've learned, y'all, you can ignore your issues. But because you ignore a thing doesn't prevent it or stop it from growing. And I remember God telling me something, y'all, it was so powerful. And God told me, he said, son, understanding spirituality when it comes to me is very much important. But God's saying, but when you begin to use it as a means to bypass the process of being healed and the process of being transformed, he said, that's when it becomes dangerous, son. Y'all know how it is. The church don't talk about reality. They don't like to talk about things that they've gone through and things that they've experienced in life. Instead of talking about it, we'll teach you how to dance so fit. We'll just continue to tell you to hold on to God unchanging hand, but you don't deal with it. And what God began to show me, even concerning the movie Lion King, when Simba decided to run away and not confront things. And he began to run away, and he began to go into the jungle with Timon and Pumbaa. And when I looked at the word Pumbaa, it represents a spiritual bypassing, where Simba, the pain of his past, was never dealt with. And because it was never dealt with, he ignored it. And I'm telling y'all, when I look at this thing, and when I see the spiritual bypassing that is happening in the church, you can see that people are using prayer. They're fasting and they're participating in what we call religious formalities. Not that they're getting close to God, or they desire to get close to God, or they desire to know God, but they're using it to escape their accountability. And God told me, he said, son, what is happening in the church, and when people are operating in this capacity where they're trying to escape and ignore, he said it only puts them in a place where it's causing them to hide behind a false peace. My God. And how many of y'all know that God, he's not calling us to ignore reality or our issues, or pretend that it didn't happen. But God is calling us to not run away from them, but to confront them. So y'all, that we can be healed and that we can be transformed. We should never use things when it comes to the church as a means of escaping from our issues or our reality. Y'all, just as Simba in the movie Lion King had to face his past to reclaim his rightful place as a king. And this is what God is saying. We must to confront our issues. We must to confront our reality. We must confront, y'all, our unresolved issues, our pain, our wounds. And God told me, he said, son, as long as they refuse, it's always a place of them moving backwards and never being able to move forward. But this is the part that I like in the movie Lion King, when Rafiki, he was a baboon, but he helped Simba confront his past. When Simba ran away from his problem, it was Rafiki who forced him to face the truth. Rafiki began to tell Simba, you must take your place in the circle of life. And at that moment, this represented the truth that Simba needed to be healed in, so that he could grow. And he wasn't going to be healed and growing by running from his pain. But Simba had to face his pain. And this is what God is saying. It's not helping you because you're running from your pain. But he said it only helps you when you make the choice to stand up as a man, as a woman, to say, no longer am I running from it, but I'm going to be as David. Not just going to run to it and confront it, but I'm going to overthrow it. That's what God is saying this way. Kandio Shabbat Si. Yeah, God, I love you. I love you, God. And just like Rafiki encouraged Simba to face his past, God is calling us to do the same thing. And it was something that was so powerful in the Psalms 34 and 18. And it says, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and save those who are crushed in spirit. In other words, y'all, true healing comes when we bring our brokenness to God. Not take it away from God and try to hide, but it only comes when we are willing to bring it to God. And when we're able to bring it, y'all, from personal experience, He will begin to renew us. Then it will put us in a place, rather than hiding behind a facade or a false peace, we can really experience what it means to really live for God. And I remember, y'all, could I just go out on another limb? I remember coming up, went through a molestation at an early age. And right after molestation, I went to doing drugs at an early age. Let me back it up. And when I was molested, and I was told that if I ever told anybody, they told me just know that it was your fault. And y'all, I went through life at the age of 11 years old. Was afraid to tell my parents, could talk about it. That thing was imprinted in my mind. And at an early age, I discovered what they call escapism. What do you mean, prophet? I found a way to intentionally start doing things that would draw me away from what originally happened to me in the beginning. And people didn't understand, and people would look at me and they was like, man, you smart, man, you just know so much, you full of knowledge. But y'all, I was doing that to escape what happened to me in the beginning. People didn't understand why I was so knowledgeable when it came to certain things, and while I would be able to be so talented, y'all, but most people just think that it was creativity. But I found a way to escape and not deal with what happened to me in the beginning. People look at me. You done been to medical school, you done been to nursing school, you done been to graphic and design school, you done been, but they couldn't catch me because it wasn't that I was that intelligent. But those things I was able to allow to distract me so that I couldn't deal with what happened to me when I was 11. But as a witness this morning, I can testify that God can do it. He can do it, y'all. Only if you allow him. I'm shedding tears right now, but they're tears of joy. Because I'm a witness that you don't have to continue to run from your past. You don't have to continue to live your life as an ostrich with your head in the ground and deal with the guilt and the shame. I'm a witness that God can do it. And the most powerful thing about this movie, y'all, is that when Simba began to face his reality and he began to take responsibility and accountability, Simba was able to return to the kingdom. He returned to the kingdom. He returned to the land. And then that's when he began to confront his uncle. But not only that, y'all, but Simba's victory over his uncle who had lied to him kind of reminds me of when we're willing to confront. Y'all, that thing will give us victory. It will give us victory, y'all, over those things that we were so afraid to challenge, so afraid to confront. It will give us victory, y'all. And I sit here, I'm thinking about it. That until Simba was willing to confront the truth of his past, that's when he was able, y'all, to step into his future. And I just want to encourage until we all are willing to confront our unresolved issues, whether it be guilt, whether it be anger, unforgiveness, shame, we would never be able to step into the fullness of what God is calling us to step into, y'all. And I thought about this even when doctors, they do the procedure, certain bypasses. How many of y'all know that a lot of those bypasses are not permanent? It just gives temporary relief. But how many of y'all know but true transformation comes when we face the pain of the past and we allow God to heal us? Then what was temporary relief becomes a release for us in life. I'm telling y'all, one thing that I've learned when I dealt with this, spiritual bypassing can be very dangerous. Because it will keep you going to church every Sunday, raising your hands, repeating after the pastor, but still and yet you are lost in the house. I just wanted to let you know, you can go to church and you can hide behind all of these things, but these things was never for you to hide behind them. But how many of y'all know that these things that we're hiding behind when it comes to the church, those things were designed to strengthen us. I just want to say this, that God wants us to be healed. And just as Rafiki brought Selma to the truth, he needed to face. How many of y'all know that God uses the truth to help us heal and move forward in our lives? I just wanted to share this with you guys, and I want y'all to continue to pray for me as I continue to pray for you guys. Love you and enjoy the rest of your day.